Hi guys, MJ, and welcome to the Season 6 Elise Jungle Guide. So hopefully after this video you will understand Elise, understand her abilities, what she can do, stuff like that, how to gank with her, clear, etc, etc. And I will also be leaving timestamps in the description below so you can just jump to quick sections if you just want to see quick little things like runes, masteries, etc. So anyway, on with the guide. So Elise falls under two sort of categories of how she can be played. She can either be played as an assassin, where you'll use all your single target damage to literally instantly kill the enemy squishy, so for example the AD carry or mid laner. Or she can even be played as a tanky mage. So this playstyle is kind of dubbed as the cocoon bot playstyle of Elise. So this means that whenever your cocoon is up, you actually want to be pretty much using it pretty much straight away, I guess. So for example, if the enemy Maokai is on your Caitlyn, you want to be using your cocoon on him and trying to damage him so you can get him down to actually die or just exit the fight because he's going to die. And this playstyle does actually work for Elise because she has current health and missing health damage, which is percentage, so on tanks this actually does work quite effectively. But as for how you do want to be playing her, I would recommend when you very first pick her up, play her as more the tanky mage, and then once you do get used to it, you can go into more of a assassin kind of playstyle with her. So now we're going to move on to talking about Elise's abilities, and I will also explain them a little bit to give you a little bit of background on how to use them. Elise's passive is Spider Queen. This means that whenever she hits one of her human form abilities on an enemy, she will actually ready a spiderling, which will then actually be able to be used once she turns into her spider form. So you can basically think of that as landing a human ability equals one spiderling in spider form. Basically just like that. These spiderlings do actually output damage and can also be used to tank enemy abilities, so for example Elise in queue, or even just to tank jungle camps in the early game. So moving on to Elise's active abilities, this is where you'll notice things start to get a little bit more complicated. So her Q, W and E and technically R are actually split up into two parts. So depending on whether you're in human form or in spider form, these abilities will actually do different things. You'll also notice as well in gameplay, like when you do play her, if you do pick her up, that she's actually a little bit difficult once you actually do play her, so you need to actually understand what your abilities are going to do in human form and what they're going to do in spider form and like their ranges and stuff like that. But it does come with just playing her and you'll end up picking it up. So anyway, moving on, Elise's Q in human form is Neurotoxin. So she fires poison at the enemy unit which deals magic damage. This is actually the current max health, so one thing you need to get your head around is in Elise's human form, just think current health, in spider form, missing health. So the Neurotoxin will deal magic damage and this is capped against monsters. You'll see on screen now, they actually does scale of AP as well, so this is where Assassin Elise actually does a lot of damage. In spider form, however, this is called Venomous Bite, so by pressing Q on an enemy, it's targeted again, you will dash towards them and bite them in spider form. This also deals magic damage and, as I said before, this one does missing health instead of current health. And this is also capped against monsters. So when using these abilities, you want to remember to be in human form first to deal current health damage, and then you switch into your spider form and use the missing health part of your damage for your Q, and then obviously that's going to result in doing more damage. You can think of it like that. Elise's W in human form is called Volatile Spiderling. So by pressing W in human form, Elise will summon a spider, which will move towards the target direction over 3 seconds. If the spider comes into contact with an enemy unit, so for example a champion or a jungle camp, it will explode and deal magic damage to nearby enemies. So you can actually think of this as a targeted ability somewhat, because if it does lock onto champions, so it will follow them if it does lock on, and as it says, it does prioritise champions, and the spider's movement speed does increase as it gets closer, so it's pretty difficult to actually outrun Elise's W. A little trick with this ability as well is to remember that in spider form you're Venomous Bite, so if you dash towards an enemy and bite them and you've already sent out your W, this means that the W that you sent out will actually jump towards the target that you've just bitten, which is a little neat trick to remember. And in spider form, Elise's W is called Skittering Frenzy. So the passive on this ability means that Elise's spiderlings from her passive will gain bonus attack speed, and the active ability means that Elise and her spiderlings gain an extra amount of bonus attack speed up to 3 seconds. As you can see by the numbers on screen, this attack speed that she gets is actually a major amount. It's also really important to remember that Elise's Spider Form W is also an auto attack reset. It does say on screen, it does give it in the tooltip, but it's also really nice for me just to mention. So in the early levels, what you want to be doing is auto attacking and then pressing W while in Spider Form, just for that extra damage, and also then you gain the bonus attack speed as well. Elise's E ability in human form is known as Cocoon. It's largely considered that this ability alone actually makes Elise's early gank so strong. So this ability is just a regular linear skill shot. You fire forward, if it hits an enemy it will stun them. You'll see from the duration as well that it is actually really long, 1.6 seconds at rank 1, so level 3 for example when you do actually take your cocoon is actually a really long time. There's pretty much no laner at level 3 who can withstand 1.6 seconds of 2 people attacking them in lane. So this usually does mean that the enemy laner is going to have to either dodge the cocoon by using flash, or actually get hit by it and take it and then flash away after they've taken the damage. In spider form, Elise's E becomes repel, so she will lift up into the air, dragging her spiderlings with her as well, and she will become untargetable. So for this you can think of sort of like a Zonya's state and also Fizz's E as well, where he jumps up on his pole and you can't be hit basically. It's really irritating to play against, but it's really good for Elise. This also reveals the area around Elise for 2 seconds, so this means that you can actually check camps and stuff like that, and also jump over walls into camps as well. But this ability does actually have a huge amount of ways it can be used. Also note as well that when you land you do actually gain bonus on hit damage, and your healing effects are actually increased for 5 seconds. Remember as well that you don't have to stay up in the air for 2 seconds. You can actually press E onto an enemy and it means Elise will go up into the air and then drop straight back down onto them. So it's basically like a gap closer for Elise if you want to think about it like that. It can also be used in many ways, for example with like Fizz's E can as well, so you can dodge abilities with it. So for example a Vi ultimate, if she targets onto you and then you press your repel, and then you will basically dodge it by being untargetable. And finally, Elise's ultimate ability is just a toggle between spider form and human form. The passive on this ability means that Elise can actually gain additional spiderlings, so she can gain up to 5 at max rank, and then also that when you are in spider form you gain a flat amount of bonus movement speed, and your attacks also do a bonus amount of on-hit magic damage and also heal you for a slight amount. It's not too much, but it does help your sustain in the jungle. On screen now you're going to see the leveling order that pretty much every Elise player will go for. So you want to be starting W, this means that you have access to your spider, and they also increase attack speed from your spider form W. So you want to remember that you actually throw out your spider form W, as of now anyway, at 1 minute 38 seconds. This means that it actually comes up a little bit earlier on as well, since it does last for 3 seconds and then it'll explode by the time either Gromp or Krugs does come live. You then want to be taking Q next, so this means that you have your Neurotoxin and Venomous Bite ready. This increases your clear speed pretty drastically, and also does help if you do end up getting into any small little fights at level 2 if you get invaded or anything like that. Although generally if the enemy jungler is quite smart, he's probably not really going to invade Elise because she is pretty strong early game. You then want to take your E at level 3, which means you have access to Cocoon and Repel. So at level 3 you can actually super easily gank actually. If you do land your Cocoon at level 3, either the mid or which lane you do decide to gank, they are pretty much going to die with a 1.6 second stun, and this is what makes your level 3 ganks so strong. You then want to go forward with just maxing Q, then W. These are your main 2 damaging abilities, and as for maxing E last, it just increases the duration stun of the Cocoon and also lowers the cooldown and increases the extra bonus that you get from Repel, but it's pretty negligible compared to the other 2 abilities, so just max that out last. And of course you want to take a point in your ultimate whenever possible, since this does increase the amount of spiderlings that you can have. It's pretty nice, increases your damage overall just from in close fights, stuff like that. So make sure you're taking a point in ult whenever you can. It's quite important. Some people might think, oh well, I already have my ult at level 1, why do I need to take more points? But it is quite important, so don't forget to do that. So as for the runes on Elise, and I will later be going over the masteries as well, so on screen now you're seeing just standard AP page which you can run on Elise. So you just have AP Quint, Armor Seals, you can have magic resist per level or just flat magic resist as your glyphs, and then just regular magic pen as your reds. But you can also run a more specific page as well if you do want. This is a little bit more expensive, and generally I guess people won't really have this as well. If you just want to pick up Elise, then this general page is fine, but the more specific one anyway, which you're seeing on screen now. So this page is kind of like the other one, but instead of having MR or MR per level on your blues, you're going to be running flat ability power as well. So this means that your early game damage is actually pretty high alongside having AP Quints as well, and you also do run 1 attack speed Quint. You'll see quite a lot of Korean junglers as well for Elise. Their Elise pages look like this. This is because the animation with just the 1 extra Quint does help quite a lot. It's actually, you'll notice it's much smoother as well, your animation for your auto attacks generally, and then also, you know, with your W as well, it's a little bit faster as well. But this is the more specific page. Obviously you don't have to use this one, but it does help. As for the masteries, which you're going to see on screen now, you will basically notice it's pretty much standard page for jungle right now, which is the 12-0-18. A little slight difference that you might notice as well is instead of running the, I'm not entirely sure on the name of the mastery, but you basically take less damage from monsters and basic attacks. Instead you actually run it's like the swiftness one, I believe. You gain 15 movement speed when in the bush or river, so this means when you do come to gank a lane, you're a little bit faster. It means you can actually get a little bit closer to firing the Cocoon, makes it easier to land, or if you're going to repel into lane, etc., you know, you're much closer a little bit quicker. And then just your typical stuff in the ferocity side of the tree, so we've just increased spell damage, and then the double-edged sword, of course, is pretty standard. You can go for exposed weakness as well if you want, but I do prefer to have more damage on my side as well. You can't always trust your laners as well. And then going in for the extra AD and ability power helps at least slightly. It's not too much, but you know, it is there. You don't really need the spell vamp and lifesteal because Elise already has really good sustain anyway over on hit. You can go for it if you want, you're a little unsure, but once you get used to Elise you won't need it. And then of course oppressor, because you know, extra damage when the CC, you have cocoon, you're going to get slows and stuff like that as well, so it's really nice. A variation of this page as well that you can run is Thunderlords. So you're going to run this one if you feel like you need that little bit of extra damage. If you just enjoy being more aggressive, you want to have that extra damage in your ganks. So if you're going to be invading the enemy jungle as well, so you're going to be taking Assassin in the Cunning Tree as well, so that means you're going to be doing extra damage. And then just again, standard stuff in the Ferocity Tree. You can take the Spell Vamp on that if you want, but it's not really needed. Doesn't really matter too much, but there you are. You can also run a Thunderlords variant. So Elise's jungle clear, you'll actually notice when you're playing her, if you see anyone play her, that her clear is actually pretty healthy. She's on like the top scale of always being quite high health in the jungle. Typically you don't really lose that much as well, because once you do get used to it, it's a little trick that you can do. I guess it's not really a trick, it's like just a thing that Elise players do. You can actually get your Spiderlings to tank the jungle camp so that you don't take any damage whatsoever, and of course you give Spiderlings to refresh when you land in human form abilities. So what you do is you'll see me do it in the clip anyway, you just, once you're in spider form and you have some Spiderlings, you just attack the jungle camp and then walk back slightly, so making sure that the jungle camp does aggro onto the spider, and then you're ready to go from there. But as for your jungle clear, typically you do want to be ganking at level 3 as Elise, since your level 3 ganks are actually really strong with Cocoon. If you do land the Cocoon, you pretty much going to get a summoner or even kill the laner at level 3. You can actually full clear until level 4 in Elise, but I wouldn't really recommend it since you are strong early, so you do want to be having as much as an impact as possible as you can early on. So in this section I'm going to be going over Ganking As Elise. This can be a little bit difficult and it's kind of situational, but there are generally 2 ways that you're going to be ganking. So the first way I'm going to mention is, this is generally for top lane, bottom lane, so for the longer lanes. So what you want to be doing is go into lane in spider form, and then you can either repel up to them or dash up to them with the Q, which is it's like a little mini dash which you can use. So from there you're going to use your W while in spider form, you're just autoing them, following them as they're walking, continuously autoing them. They might be like, expecting the cocoon to come out at any moment, so they're like dodging and weaving, stuff like that. So you're just hitting them down, your laner will be as well. And then once they try and escape, so for example they use a dash or a flash, that's when you want to swap into human form, cocoon, and then WQ or QW, whichever one, and then you're going to be wanting to follow them with the autos again and swap back into spider form and get the extra damage down as well. So that's why you can tell it's quite a long combo as well, so that's why you generally want to be doing it in top lane, bottom lane. You have a longer lane to follow them down with autos and stuff like that. So the second way is a little bit more difficult and it can mess up. So generally if you have red buff, you can go, for example, mid lane, because it's a shorter lane, so you want to generally be doing this. You want to really rely on your laner to land the CC, so this works much better if you have like really reliable CC mid lane, so like Malzahar, TF, Annie for example, just targeted stun, your laner really can't mess it up. So you walk into the lane, you just auto them. So in human form you walk into the lane, just auto them with a red buff, they're slowed, so TF throws the gold card, he lands the gold card, and then you want to try and land the cocoon on the laner when it's guaranteed. So you don't really want to just walk into lane, throw it, and it's like, oh, missed, can't really do anything anymore, then just walk away. So what you want to be doing is making sure it's guaranteed, kind of like the Lee Sin queue. You walk up to them and wait until the very last second, so when it's 100% going to hit them, that's when you want to throw it. And then obviously once you do hit the cocoon, you go forward your regular combo. I guess this section has kind of been a little bit long and rambly, but I hope it did actually help, because it is kind of difficult understanding how to gank with Elise. She does have 2 forms, so it can be a bit weird, but there's something that you can consider. Of course there are, like, in some situations one way is going to be better than the other, but typically you can just choose one or the other and it should be pretty fine anyway. As long as you do hit the cocoon, that's like quite a core fundamental of being able to play Elise, is landing that cocoon. So as long as you do get that down, then you should be fine. Moving on to the item build. So you just really want to be doing your standard AP jungler start, which is your Hunter's Talisman, refillable potion, and the Warding Trinket. You don't really need the 3 health pots with Elise, because you don't really take that much damage anyway, and you are also healthy enough to gank at level 3 even without the 3 health pots. You also can actually start with the Hunter's Machete, but you do actually kind of run out of mana quite a lot unless you are starting blue, and also if your blue does get stolen for any reason, you are kind of, I guess, screwed pretty hard. If you do have the Hunter's Talisman, it does put you quite far behind if you do mess up on anything, so just generally start with your Hunter's Talisman instead of the Machete, because the mana regen and the HP regen as well, mostly the mana regen though from the Hunter's Talisman, is far superior. And now moving on to the general build and also the assassin build, which you are seeing on screen now. So with the general build, what you're going to be wanting to do is go for your general AP jungle item, which is Runic Echoes. The smite choices you can actually choose, you don't have to go Stalkers, but that is just my personal preference. I just find it so much easier, it's really nice. I think you probably will too, so just generally I go for Stalkers. The slow is really nice for landing the cocoon, but you can go Trackers or Skirmishers. Don't feel that you have to stick to the Stalkers just because it's there. As for the boots, usually I do say that it's just like a placeholder and you can go for the whichever boots you want. Here you do have a choice. You can still go either like Ninja Tabis, Mercury Treads, Boots of Swiftness, but this one I would definitely recommend the Lucidity boots because the 10% CDR is really, really crucial on Elise. The extra CDR for the cocoon and all your generally other abilities is just really, really nice. But you can also go sock shoes as well if you want. That's more if you're ahead and you want that extra damage just to be able to continue snowballing your lead. As for the item that you want to be going to after your boots, I would definitely recommend a Rylai's Crystal Scepter. So this is, in my opinion anyway, extremely core on Elise. So obviously you don't have to get it like instantly after your boots if you are behind, like you're 0-3, things are going really, really bad. Don't try and go for your Rylai's, go for more tanky route. But if you are going even or you're ahead, definitely into Rylai's. This item, in my opinion, is like super core on Elise. It's so good. Like once you buy it, you'll see how amazing it is. It makes it so easy to land your cocoon just by like throwing your Q out, or if you W hit someone. But then also your Spiderling's slow as well in spider form, so it's pretty impossible to get away from Elise if you don't have some dash or like a flash or anything like that. But then even if like they do flash away from you, you can just like repel and follow them, and then the Spiderlings are hitting them again, and then they're in the same situation and they're stuck. So definitely Rylai's Crystal Scepter, amazing item on Elise, definitely get it. Once you have done the Rylai's, it's pretty much situational from there on out. You can go for Omen, as I've showed, or you can go Spirit Visage, or even Abyssal Scepter. You do actually even have the option to go Banshee's Veil and stuff like that if you do want, although I definitely prefer Spirit Visage because it does give CDR, and typically you're not entirely going to get focused by all the CC, so I don't think the Banshee's Veil is exactly necessary, but I'll talk about that later on. But once you do have the Rylai's anyway, it is pretty situational what you want to be going, although of course, as I mentioned before, if you are like 0-3, don't go straight into the Rylai's, you can go tanky, so you can go like Runic Echoes and then get like your Randomins Omen or your Spirit Visage, something like that. So the build is obviously situational, but I'm just giving you a general guideline of what you can follow as a build in a regular match. Also on screen you will see what I've basically called the single target assassination build. So Elise is already a single target mage, so all your abilities do generally affect one person, apart from your W is AoE obviously, but typically your abilities do affect that one person. So this build is honestly absolutely disgusting when it comes to the damage. If you can pull this build off, you will basically, the game is a 4v5 if you can pull this build off, because you just instantly delete whoever you choose. Like obviously not some 300 MR like Maokai or something like that, but you know what I mean, like if you stand in a bush and like the enemy MF, like Misfortune, walks into it, you just cocoon WQ and she just dies instantly. Like there's nothing that she can do whatsoever, like as long as that bush isn't warded obviously, but you get my point. So this build is actually incredibly difficult to pull off though. You are incredibly squishy with this build. Pretty much any amount of CC and you're gonna die. Like you'll just get focused instantly, and you don't really want to team fight with this build as well. You can team fight with it obviously, but it is incredibly difficult. I don't actually even do this build myself, but I used to do it. Like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you do have to be an incredibly good Elise to actually be able to pull this off. So I will give you like a little bit of explanation with this build. So you'll basically see anyway that the Runic Echoes and the Rylai's is still there. The boots, however, this time you definitely want to be going for sock shoes. This is pretty key. So this is like early magic penetration. Elise's early damage is already really high, but then on top of that with the sock shoes you do insane amounts of damage early. It's pretty crazy how much damage you actually do early on when you do pick up sock shoes. You'll then probably pick up your either Rylai's or Leandries after you've got your boots. It's kind of interchangeable. It doesn't really matter which one you go for first or whatever. It's just kind of preference. But if you do go from sock shoes straight into the Leandries and do finish off, you will notice it's honestly a dirty amount of damage that you do, because you do have straight away, you already have 30 pen straight away, plus obviously on runes you have a little bit, but you're practically doing true damage to any squishies. So the mid laner or the AD carry, you're basically doing true damage, and alongside with Elise's really high base damage anyway, it shouldn't be legal the amount of damage that you do. You basically one shot someone. It's really stupid. And then as for the last two items that I have put on the list, so you'll see it's Abyssal Scepter and Zhonya's Hourglass. So you don't have to go for these. You can go for Void Staff instead of Zhonya's, but I'll just put that there because generally that's what you do want to be going for, because the extra safety is always really nice. So the Zhonya's just gives you like a double invulnerability with your repel, and the Zhonya's active. It's really nice. It's generally really good for being able to like pseudo engage, I guess. Like you're not a full engage because you are incredibly squishy, but somewhat being able to engage and then go invulnerable so you can't get hit and your team can follow up. The Abyssal though is really dumb, this item. Like honestly, I believe this item is so dumb with Elise on top of this build as well, since you already reduce their armor and then you also have so much magic pen anyway. You have 30, so in theory you have 50 magic pen alongside the Abyssal, so that is pretty much true damage on any squishy that you're ever going to be able to hit. So you're going to do insane amounts of damage. So definitely though, try this build, consider it, maybe try it in a normal game, or wait till you get like really good with Elise, or just mess around in normals with your friends with this build. It's really, really good though. If you can do it, then you can just, the game is off RV5 if you can pull this build off. And now, after the incredibly lengthy item discussion, I'm going to go on to the considerations for Elise. So the very first part is Zhonya's. So I know that was in the previous one in the assassin build, but I'm saying Zhonya's as a consideration for the regular tank build. So what you can do is actually go Zhonya's alongside your tankiness, so that say they're focusing you and then you're actually still getting quite low even though you're tanking, or maybe there's like 4 people on you all at once, then use Zhonya's, which is very weird, and it's a weird concept, but that means like, especially in lower elo anyway, people will clamber around you and they won't do anything. I guess this is more of a consideration for like a lower elo games, you know, like bronze, silver, even like low gold, where like you'll be tanky and you have Zhonya's, but it's like they'll just kind of stand there and wait for you to come out with the Zhonya's and not do anything, and then you're a tank anyway, so when you do come out of it, you're still, you know, you're not going to die instantly. So that's just a little consideration that you can think of, and obviously if you notice that people don't do that like in your games, then obviously, you know, don't do it, because you're just going to be wasting gold on an item that's not really useful. The next item that we're going to consider is Banshee's Veil. So this is definitely in the more standard build, the more tanky build, so you can go this if you are being heavily focused, or you need that the shield that it provides, and also the MR, of course. So the shield that it provides to actually, you know, do something with it. So typically you're not really going to get focused a whole lot anyways, at least, because like you are kind of a tank, and like if they do focus stuff into you anyway, even if you have Spirit Visage, like not the Banshee's Veil, like they're still losing out anyway, because, you know, they're throwing their like main abilities into a tank. It doesn't really matter that much. So like, you know, if you do get chunked out, it's perfectly fine. But generally, if you notice that you are getting focused with a lot of major CC, the Banshee's Veil can really, really help, and it also kind of makes you like that unstoppable force while you have the shield. So like they can throw like a TF gold card into you, you know, and then he thinks he's going to stop you, but you have your shield up, and then you kill him anyway. Like he's just wasted his ability basically. So that's something to consider. And the next item on the list is Iceborne Gauntlet. So Iceborne Gauntlet, you really want to be getting this for the slow. Typically the Rallies is going to do, but if you just want to be tanky, you can actually swap the Rallies for an Iceborne Gauntlet instead. Of course, it doesn't apply as easy as the Rallies does. Like Rallies applies off every single one of your abilities. The Iceborne Gauntlet only applies after the, you know, the on-hit stuff. So it's a bit more difficult to actually apply, but it still helps, and it gives you that general tankiness as well. Instead of, you know, Rallies is just giving you ability power and health, no resistance as the backup whatsoever. So you can consider it, although typically I really wouldn't, but sometimes it can work, and it's really nice into like a full AD team. So, you know, you got Runic Echo straight into the Iceborne Gauntlet, and then you can go, you know, your full armor itemization, you're super tanky. And the final consideration is Void Staff. So typically I would go this one, you can actually decide really on whether you want to go for this one on the assassin build or on the tanky build. So on the tanky build, you really want to be going Void Staff when you're really focusing the front line. So, you know, say you have like a Kog'Maw, for example, and the Kog'Maw cannot die in these fights. Like, you have to keep Kog'Maw alive. So what you want to be doing is, you know, stunning the like the Malphite dives in. You want to try and stop him getting off your carry, or like Darius, for example. Like, you need him to, like, he has loads of MRs, like, you're not doing damage, so you pick up a Void Staff. So that's what you really want to be doing. Think Void Staff when you're really focusing the front line. It's not as effective on the like on squishies, because, you know, they don't have that much MR anyway, but the Void Staff is super effective on the big tanks. So if they're running at you with like Banshee's Veil and Spirit Visage, then you're still going to do damage as long as you do have the Void Staff. So just think Void Staff, focusing the front line, big tanks, super effective. And now in this section, I'm going to show you some basic combos of Elise. Generally, there isn't really that many anyway. It's just a combination of being able to press your Q and W, and obviously landing your cocoon as well, and also being able to actually switch fast. That's probably really the only thing that you'll have to get down with Elise, is being able to do your combo in real quick succession, because if you do it quite slow, then you are dropping damage, and Elise is quite known for that real fast damage output that she does have when she does go in for a gank. So anyway, on screen now you're going to see the pretty basic combo in a Clay. Just see me doing it on red buff here. So all you're doing is basically throwing out your W, or you can do your Q first as well if you want, and then you swap into your spider form and then QW again. You can press your W before your Q or your Q before your W. Generally it doesn't really matter that much, but obviously there's a slight difference, but as long as you are pressing, making sure you are hitting all your buttons, then you should be perfectly fine. The next combo is I like to call it like a regular cocoon combo. So you're landing your cocoon and then doing your regular combo. So this is pretty simple. All you need to make sure to do is actually land the cocoon in the first place, and then you can go ahead with doing the combo, which you are seeing on screen now. You can throw out your W, as I said before, first. So you land the cocoon, press your WQ, and then swap into spider form and WQ again, or QW, whichever way you want. And this is basically the highest damaging combo, since you are doing the current health to missing health combo. And now you're seeing the repel combo, which I mentioned before. So when you are going into a lane, you can actually repel up towards the enemy and wait for them to either run away or flash or do anything like that, try and escape, and then that is when you go for the cocoon. So you see this is a much longer combo, and typically this is why it works in top lane, because you have time to switch from your spider form into human form and then back into spider form again. But this combo does do a lot of damage if you do maintain being on the enemy laner for a long amount of time. And now you're just seeing a little demonstration that I wanted to mention. So I mentioned before that your W volatile spiderling will actually jump to whoever you use your venomous bite on in spider form. So you can see it here that whenever I throw the W, and as long as you actually Q onto any target in spider form, that W will actually go onto anything. And you'll see that the range doesn't actually matter as long as it is in with that 3-second detonation time. And now we're on the final section where I just talk about general playstyle and any other further comments that I do want to add to the guide. So generally, as I said, you do want to remember to be aggressive on Elise, because you are like an early game jungler, you do fall off late game, so that's definitely be snowballing your advantages. If you do see an advantage that you can actually take, then definitely go for it. Obviously don't be like super aggressive thinking like, oh, I've got a repel in here, 1v3, get this triple kill, because the guide said be aggressive is what I need, this is going to make me snowball. Like, don't be super aggressive, but be calculated aggressive, as I mentioned before. So you want to be smart aggressive and just take opportunities that are going to give you an advantage. As well with Elise, don't be too afraid of taking kills. It's actually quite easy as well to give over kills to your laners with the duration of the cocoon. So don't be too afraid of like letting the kill go over to the laner. But obviously, if they are going to get away, don't be like, oh no, I've got to let him have the kill. Like, just take the kill. It's perfectly fine. And then obviously push the lane as well. So don't be too scared of taking kills on Elise, because you do snowball really hard as well. And if you do actually get a decent lead over the enemy jungler, or like just typically anyone in the game, you're just going to one-shot them, and it's just going to be disgusting for the enemy team to play against. Another thing that I do want to mention as well is that Elise is really good at tower diving, and this actually does help with your snowballing your leads and being like calculated aggression. So the reason that she's so good at tower dives is because she has her repel, her spiderlings can actually tank the tower as well, and also that her cocoon does not draw tower aggro. So what you can do with your cocoon, because it actually deals 0 damage, it's only a stun, which means that you can basically be point blank right up into the enemy laner's face, land the cocoon, then once you deal the damage, that's when you do actually take the tower aggro. So you need to remember that it's when you deal damage to someone is when the tower aggro's onto you, because the cocoon deals no damage, it doesn't draw aggro. So it means that you can actually set up a tower dive more or less perfectly by making sure that you actually land your CC and then the actual dive goes ahead. So remember that though, that the cocoon doesn't draw aggro until you actually deal damage to them, and you can actually set up really early dives with Elise, but wouldn't recommend it in soloQ. Definitely try it in like duo Q or anything like that though. Works really well, completely shuts down a lane if you can pull it off. Another thing I do highly recommend as well with Elise, I guess I kind of just go for all champs, but I'll just put it in the Elise part anyway, because I do think it's quite important for Elise, and because it's a bit more difficult to pull off her combo than some of other champions as well. So I would recommend that you actually go into a custom game and just practice your combo, like the combos that I've shown you in this video, and just practice them on jungle camps. You can even practice them on bots if you want like a moving kind of opponent, but definitely practice them on jungle camps. So like cocoon the camp and then use your QW, swap forms, stuff like that. So you want to just practice that, get your combo down, and then also you can even just get a friend as well, get them to like face check a bush, and then you perform your combo, see if you can kill them really quickly, stuff like that. So just practice again on Elise. Really nice to get your combo down, so highly recommend doing that. And that pretty much does wrap up the Elise guide anyway, guys. Hope you did enjoy this video, hope it did help some people. Maybe you consider picking up Elise or even making your main jungler. She's really good, considering she's AP based as well, so that means in dynamic queue, solo queue, you do actually get quite a lot of those full AD comps, and you can avoid that by having an AP jungler in your champion pool that you can pick up. So I would recommend playing Elise for that reason. Also the fact that you can actually climb solo queue super easy with Elise. You can pretty much 1v9 if you're a really good Elise. Then you can be that really annoying Elise that's everywhere, they're in every bush, they've been in every lane, you're just getting kills all over the map, and the enemy jungler's just sat taking the blue buff. Like, you can be that super annoying jungler, so would highly recommend picking her up, and hope this guide did help anyway. As I said before, if you did enjoy, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. Do you want to see more? I will see you guys in the next video.